Aboro, Aboye, Aboshisha. And Ekabo, welcome to another broadcast of the Ifa Orisa tradition discussion hosted at the Ile Ijuba Ode Otun. Today, we are going to discuss some more fundamentals of Ifa. All right, we're going to discuss the codification of Ifa divine message, and we are also going to discuss, based on today's subject, the binary system and the significance of numbers. But before we get into today's lesson, let me first begin by offering the Iba by reciting the Oriki. Opwen ni fun olorun, Olodumare Oba Ajiki, Mojiloni, Mowogun Mary Aye, Iba Ila Orun, Iba Iwo Orun, Iba Ariwa, Iba Gusu, Iba Oba Igba Aye, Iba Orun Oke, Iba Baba, Iba Yeye, Iba Atiwo Orun, Iba She Igungun Kiki Igungun, Iba She Ori, Ori Inu, Pori Atiwo Orun, Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. All right. Now, one of the reasons that I chose to deal with the aspect of the cosmological views of Ifa today is to continue what I started last stream, all right, where I explained what is Ifa, how it came into existence, and how the system actually works. Today, I'm going further into explaining in detail some measure of information on how the system works. All right? I'm going to read a bit and then we're going to have some discussions. In order to have access to divine message, Orunmila, in his wisdom, devised the computer-compatible binary coding system thousands of years before the emergence of modern computers. Ifa is preserved in binary coded format and is output in parable format. This parable format is what you hear from a Babalawo or Ifa priest when they sit on the mat to give the message to a client. All right, and explaining here in brackets it says, note that Ifa talks in parables. For instance, when Ifa says old person, it might not be old persons per se, rather somebody that is senior to you in spirituality, somebody that is senior to you in wisdom, or somebody who is your elder in the house of Oludumare, or someone that you respects. All right, so now I'm going to give you a breakdown of how the Odus are related to numbers and how the numbers play a very specific role, particularly in the binary system. Now, Ifa is coded in 256 Odu or corpus. There are 16 major odus and there are 246 minor odus, which when added make up the 256. Odu is called Ifa corpus or the words. There are 1,680 sacred verses in each Odu. These are presented in parable format. If you multiply 256 by 1680, you would get 430,080. Hence, the body of Ifa consists of 430,080 messages for mankind. That is why they call Orunmila Oluwa, Mi Amomota, which is my Lord, the unfathomable one. That is, you cannot know everything about Ifa. This is a revelation which is made known to us through selected individuals called prophets, messengers, apostles, saviors, avatars, messiah, Orisa, etc., etc. Ifa does therefore represent the greatest unwritten holy book on earth, a perennial fountain of esoteric knowledge from which all prophets, messengers, messiahs, apostles, guru, rajas, and Orisa. All right, now I explained the numbers that are associated with the Ifa system. And now I'm going to speak a little bit on the cycles as it relates to how we do our appeasement and how we recite orikis during particular periods. All right, now to understand this, I would give a little backdrop about the Yorubas. Okay, and not just about the Yorubas, but most of the traditional indigenous communities in West Africa. Most of these societies are agrarian societies, meaning they engage in a lot of agriculture and trade and market and selling, etc., etc. As a result of that, the cycles that are extremely important to them is the lunar cycles, which they must use in order to be able to plant, to know when to plant, to know when to harvest, to know when is the best time to engage in transplanting seedlings and all these things, hunting and all of this. All right? So, because of this, the way in which their calendar is broken down is very, very significant because it relates to the lunar cycles. So again, beside us talking about Ifa having 256 verses, 16 primary, and 240 Omo Odus, which is the children of the principal Odus, we also see the significance of numbers in the way they count their time. Because they follow a lunar calendar in West Africa, they have a year that consists of 13 months. So there again, we are looking at the significance of numbers. Because a lunar year is 13 months, 1 month comprises of 28 days. And this is the way the indigenous and traditional practices count time. One of their month is made up of 7 weeks, And 1 week is made up of 4 days. So 4 times 7 is 28. Here is the numbers again, and 28 makes up a complete lunar cycle. So I hope for those who are following, they understand the role of numbers in the everyday life of a devotee, of a practitioner, and of an indigenous traditionalist. So let's move forward. If there are 7 weeks in the month, each of 4 days, then that would give us a month that is equal to 28 days, which is a full lunar cycle, which would run from a full moon to another full moon, or a new moon to another new moon. All right? By some scientist evaluation, it works out to approximately 27 and 2/3 of a day. All right? But nonetheless, to round it off, we say 28 days. So here now, because of the lunar cycle and the patterns that are picked up within those 28 days, this is how it is broken down for us to practice chanting orikis and making appeasements. It breaks down into what we call a 4-day prayer cycle, or on every 5th, which is the first day of the week. So we have daily prayers that we can offer. We have the 4 days cycle, which is done by an individual or is done at home. The 4-day cycle is made up of a very important thing to recognize is we have the Obatala Day, we have Ifa Day, we have Ogun Day, and we have Shango Day. And these days keep rotating. So the next week is going to be the same thing all over again. Obatala, Ifa, Ogun, and Shango. And it rotates that way for 7 weeks. So we have the daily oriki, which we recite. Then we have special orikis every 4th day, for some counting the 5th as the first. And then we also have the 8th day, where we have family recitation. We have the 16th day, which we have community prayers or recitation. And then we have every 91 days, we have a quarterly meeting. When we do this quarterly meeting, what we do is we do a reading for every quarter. All right? Beside the 1 day, the 4 day, the 8 day, the 16 day, the 91 day, every year we also have an annual reading. So all of this to say, beside us looking at the numbers, we also understand the role of seeking the guidance of Oludumare at regular intervals. Because during the 4 day, the 8 day, the 16, the 91, which we have names for all of them. All right? During this time, some form, beside the appeasement of offerings offered to Ifa, there is also divination performed so that we can receive guidance for those periods. So for the Oshe, we would perform divination to know what to expect for the next 4 days. On the 8th day, we do divination to know what to expect during the next period before we reach the 16 days. Then after the 16 days, divination again. Then every quarter, divination, and then for the year. So every devotee should be well guided accordingly based on these readings. All right, I want to talk a little bit about time. Further now, I'm going into explaining some things about time and the importance of time. I had a question recently where someone who was at the workshop raised a discussion with me concerning the importance of time. The person made specific reference to the issue of time of birth. All right. So I want to talk about that just a little bit. I mean, I already addressed the person and provided an answer, but normally when people ask these questions, it is sometimes to the benefit of others to hear what is the response to it. All right. I'm going to talk a little bit now about traditional life among indigenous people and also the significance of time also. In our tradition, when a child is born, there are specific rituals that are performed. All right. I think in a previous stream, I spoke about the birthing process and lotus birth and the EB and all of that. But today, because I'm discussing time, I'm going to talk a little bit about the rites of passage and the rituals that and the ceremonies that take place when children are born and when they go through different stages. Now, in the tradition, one of the general practices is that the pregnant mother with the father of the child would visit the babalawo. And that is in most instances to determine whether or not the pregnancy is going to progress quite well and everything is going to be well with the mother as well as with the baby. All right? The babalawo is not the only person that is visited during the course of the pregnancy. During the course of the pregnancy, there is several persons that are visited by the mother. All right. One of them is called the Elewe Omo, which is a female herbalist who specializes in treating pregnant women as well as their unborn baby using herbal applications. There is also another person that the mother would visit beside the Elewe Omo and the Babalawo. She will also visit the abiye, who is the person who delivers the baby, especially coming close to the time when she's expected to deliver, so that the person could observe the position of the fetus in preparation for delivery. So, in our tradition, our indigenous cultural practices, it is normal for a person to visit what we call in the West here a midwife. All right. And in indigenous societies here, the midwife would be a combination of the person delivering the baby and also will be a person who is a herbalist. So we in the Caribbean, we have the two in one person. So we don't have two separate roles being carried out. Here, we have one person who's going to be delivering the child, the midwife, and she would also be the person to give the mother herbs if needed during the course of the pregnancy, and particularly coming down to the time of delivery. So, yes, we would not say it's prenatal astrology, but sometimes when the pregnant mother visits the Babalawo may prescribe that the unborn child receives their hand of Ifa. And an Odu pot is prepared with ekins and everything for an unborn child. And the mother of that child must attend to those things that are prepared for the unborn child. All right. So if some people want to look at it as astrology, prenatal astrology, that's up to you. But in the tradition, I'm showing you that time is a very essential measure of the development of a being who is spiritual, who has left Orun to come to Aye to fulfill a purpose. All right. So let me go on. Now, when the child is born, we're looking now at the significance of time cycles in the life of the child. There are rituals or ceremonies whichever word you prefer, because some people are afraid of the word ritual because they seem to think it's something mystical, not recognizing if every morning you get up, you brush your teeth, you take a bath, you put on your shoes, the order in which you do things makes up a ritual. So the word is no word to be feared, or it's not a mysterious word. A ritual is simply something you do following a particular order on a frequent basis. That's a ritual. So let's talk now about the newborn child. We just spoke of the unborn child, and we talk about the mother visiting the Babalawo, and in some cases, they're being told to do specific things for the child. When the child is born, and the child is just a few days old, we perform specific rites. It's called different names by different people. All right. And even among the Yorubas, there are different variations in the names of the ritual. Some people call it Akosejai. Some people call it Isentai, spelled with an E. Some people call it Akosewaye. Some people call it Isentai, also spelled with an I. We also have Imori, which is another ritual that is done for children to determine which side of the family and which ancestor has returned. We also have Iso Moloroko, which is another rite. All right. Now, as the child gets older and the child comes onto its own, meaning entering into adult life, there are various other rites of passages or rituals that the child goes through. There is a Shefa, there is a Tefa, right? There is Iteledu or Olodun Ifa, there is Eligan, and there is Onirile. All of these are different rites that are performed at different stages. Some is performed for warriors, some are performed for women, and some are performed for young boys and young girls. Okay? So all of these different ritual ceremonies mark important stages of life that a child goes through, right? So this may not be astrology in the sense of how it's known in the West, because astrology simply means astrologic. But what we depend on as devotees is the wisdom of Ifa that provide for us the guidance and the knowledge of what is the will of Oludumare for our lives. So that's a fundamental difference. All right? But as I said, all of these stages of spiritual development and spiritual evolution is recognized through the rituals and the ceremonies that marks stages of life. So again, it is numbers. Let me demonstrate. The mother of the child in our indigenous tradition is the one who ushers the child into all the stages of life, including birth. So the word Odu that describes the womb also describes the containers in which all of the sacred objects are kept. And the mother of the child, until a child is married, is the one who always presents the Odu container or the Odu pot to the child as part of their rites of going from one stage to another stage. And when a man, or when a young man has become a man and takes a wife, she then becomes the custodian of bestowing Odu on her husband. Now, even though it sounds simple, it is a lot deeper than that. But because this is just the fundamental part we're discussing, I am just pointing out at all stages of a person's spiritual evolution, there is an extremely important role that is played by the feminine energy. A lot of this has been played down because of colonialization. But I want everyone who could hear me to understand something. The tradition that we lost due to slavery, colonization, and oppression is now available for us to become familiar with and for us to reorient ourselves so we can know what is our true purpose and that we may know what is our ancestral inheritance that we should be carrying on. I want to mention just one more thing before I end for today because I think I went a little bit long. There is a process called Oruko Abiso, which has to do with the giving of the name of the child. And I believe a lot of times this might tie in to both the Imori and the Osomoloroko, where the child is given a name by the parents or the elders in the family that relates to the family's lineage and their professions, as well as it may also reflect any particular historic or important occurrence that may take place during the time that the child was born. Whether it means something strange, maybe with the way the child came out of its mother, or maybe some important thing happened in the village or in the community, the child may be given a name that reflects this. All of these things are markers of time. So again, it is important for us to know the role of time and the cycles of time plays a very important role in our evolution, in our development, and it also determines when we return to our essence. All right, and with that, I'd like to thank everyone for coming in. And every week I say, and this week is no exception, you do good for yourself. You do bad for yourself. My words of encouragement is that you do good. All right? So, on behalf of the Ile Ijuba Ode Otun, we thank you all for joining us. You can look at these videos on YouTube at Ile Ijuba Ode Otun, as well as we have over 140 videos on Ifa Bemero, home of Ifa Orisa, on YouTube also. And for those interested in keeping up with the community, the Ifa Orisa community activities in Trinidad, we have several pages on Facebook. We have the Ifa Orisa Tradition Discussion Group. We have the Ifa Orisa. We have a metaphysical group. We have an emergency planning group. We have a message board. We have many, many pages where a lot of these videos could be seen, as well as you would be made familiar with all of the activities that is happening in the community. Remember, we have our convention on the 23rd of this month at the Desperados Panyard on George Street, Port of Spain. The event starts at 9 in the morning, and I believe it goes up until about 5 or 6 p.m. All right. It would be a fantastic event, so I want to encourage everyone to come out and support. And then, of course, I think in June, we also have our annual Ifa Festival, all right, that we also would invite the public to come out and join us. All right, so I would see you on Friday for the History Live at Ile Ijuba Ode Otun, where we will discuss the important aspects of Trinidad history as far as the role of our ancestors have led to where we are today. Odabo, and see you on Friday.